What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode 19. Kind of a bonus episode this week, or maybe the last episode was a bonus episode. I don't know. They're all episodes. We're here again. We got a guest. We got BikiniBodhi back with us. He's a repeat guest for the podcast. You guys recognize him, I'm sure. And we're going to get into a lot of hot topics within the community today. We will talk about some news that's going on in the scene, but we're mainly going to be talking about kind of the Save Siege movement, just a lot of the anxiety within the community right now, and we might even talk about the one-shot headshot mechanic. That should be kind of spicy. But I guess first of all, let's start out. Bikini, your name has been in a few people's mouths here recently, haven't it?
Is that the only thing that's been in mouths?
Oh, stop, Pete.
What? That's acceptable. It wasn't within the first 30 seconds of the video.
Oh god. Well, yeah, I guess.
We had you on. Originally, the plan was, guys, we were gonna have Bikini on with another YouTuber by the name of Muchflight. Muchflight made a video talking about the state of Siege right now. In it, he mentioned Bikini. Bikini made a response video on his second channel, kind of going over the video and giving his thoughts. So the idea was we were going to have both of them on here and kind of go over some points on both sides. Muchflight confirmed, but then never showed up. So at this point, we're recording an hour later than what we thought we were going to, because we've just been kind of waiting on him. And he's a no-show. So with that said, the show must go on, I guess, and we're just going to kind of talk about it here, and we're going to have one fewer person than we thought. So with that said, I guess, I don't know, maybe you start out Bikini here by just kind of outline, he made a video. What were the points against you? Get us started here.
I mean, the video in general, I guess, was sort of stemmed from this whole Save Siege movement. I know you guys have already touched that in a previous podcast, so I'm not really going to go too deep into that. But then there were also a part in the video where he was sort of talking about my stance on the thing, and sort of pointing out some parts where I may have seemed hypocritical about I have a very set opinion on how Overwatch has handled their game, and he was comparing it to how I defend Siege, and so that was one of the things that I sort of covered up in not covered up, but clarified is the right word.
Covered up
in my
wrong,
video. Yeah, I realized that was really bad. No, but I clarified some things, and obviously there had been a lot of hot topics, so to speak. So it was just nice making that video, covering up a lot of things, and I've received a lot of comments that are happy that I did, that were previously disagreeing pretty heavily with me, that are now sort of kind of seeing my points. So I'm really happy with the video.
So for anyone that doesn't have the context, the video was, I think it was 20 minutes long, the original one, right?
Yeah.
And it basically goes through pretty much the entire list that Pengu also made. But there's a lot of the things are taking in, so it'll be a lot of bugs here, and then it'll be cheating here, and then Bikini in another segment. And there was a lot of stuff. But some of it was one of the things that I saw that I had a little bit of an issue was it was mentioned that none of the bugs were getting fixed, or that compared to previous seasons, we aren't getting as much as we used to get. But a lot of the bugs that are shown through that video are old ones.
Yeah.
And it had to scour the web to find the videos from different content creators, because I don't believe that you'd be able to. I don't know if you guys can, but I can't. In 1 or 2 weeks, I wouldn't have enough video to be able to even make 2 minutes of bugs and things going wrong in a week of play. Depending on let's pull out lag and stuff like that, because server stuff is not something you can. It's not a button you fix or a glitch in game, right?
Okay, I agree for the most part, but I think that everybody has to kind of admit that Rainbow Six Siege is a buggy game.
Sure,
Rainbow Six Siege is a buggy game. Okay, now there's a lot of things that I'm sure we'll get into that kind of why it's a buggy game. That's important. Mm-hmm. Why is it a buggy game is important. But Rainbow Six Siege is a buggy game. I mean, in the test server, and it is a test server, the test server, they update it the other day, and when you hit an Ella mine, when you hit a Zofia mine or an air jab, your screen went completely black. For like
In all fairness, if they didn't do that, you would crash.
I'm just saying, but I'm just saying, like,
no, but that matters because so we were playing on test server, a cheater comes in, instantly, boom, abandoned sanction, done. Everyone just blacked out, like the entire game crashed. I don't know if it's the exact thing that after that was fixed, but there was a rollback right after that, like literally
they
half
fixed
an hour,
it really
an hour
quick.
after. And in that next patch, you started getting the black screen and it was hilarious. It was with Oryx as well. So when you're getting hit by Oryx, your entire screen goes black. I thought it was like a knockout effect to start with until I got hit by a Sophia mine. But sure, plenty of bugs, especially in test servers. But when you're playing...
I've lost audio.
I think I muted myself.
Yeah.
when you're playing live, how often does this actually happen? Like, if you're playing a ranked game, can you mention the last time? I mean, I'm sure you can, but when was it? Last time you really had a proper, like, game-changing bug that really had an impact?
My audio's gone backwards. Like, my audio's been switched left to right rear. That's happened probably this season. One time, out of, how many games I've played. But I mean, to put the impression out there that every time I log on, I'm either playing cheaters or I'm encountering bugs is not fair, in my opinion. I fully agree with that.
That's my problem.
That's where I don't know if I'm going to be able to contribute much today, because for this particular episode, unusually, because I can't relate entirely to that perspective of things. It was a really good video, and it might be because I don't play as many hours as the Mr. Flight and you guys. Like, how many hours do you guys play a week? Just out of interest, just estimate.
I can actually check.
8 hours a day.
8 hours a day. So what? 5 days a week? 6 days a week?
7 days a week.
Damn. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so I might play 12 to 15. Do you know what I mean? So you're eclipsing me easily in like a day and a half. So you're going to experience more bugs than me anyway. So when I see all these bugs being listed and I'm not experiencing, I'm like, am I just like really lucky? Because I don't want to paint a picture that is inaccurate by me saying, no, there's no bugs. But like, maybe I'm just not playing the game enough by playing like 12 to 15 hours a week. Because I do get bugs that are frustrating, but not to the extent that other people are. And I do wonder if that's because you're playing like one game to death just constantly.
Well, it also compounds quickly, because I really get the frustration. I just think it's super important that you're fair about like segmenting the different things. Because if I play like yesterday, for example, on stream, we probably met 4 or 5 cheaters. Like, we're talking full on, extra fast, hip fire through the map, all that. I can remember those games, but I can't remember the legit one that was in between them. And that one probably didn't have any bugs, right? So like, you have the cheaters, you have the occasional bugs, then there's a little bit of sound issue. Then there's the fact that sometimes you die because you make a mistake, and it's really not nice. And if you can find anything that in that round could change, that, like, I see that every day when we play with people, at least. It's so often that people go, oh yeah, but I couldn't hear the guy in the wire. And then, like, you kind of could, but we were talking, and that's why you didn't hear it, or someone was shooting, and maybe next round you actually couldn't hear the guy. Fair enough. But it very quickly goes from, just because we know they are there, it's always that. It's the same if you go to Reddit or Twitter. Like, people are way more likely to engage with a negative comment, right? You're way more likely to upvote a negative post. There's a reason that the video saying this operator is busted does better than saying this new operator is okay. Right?
Yeah,
like, that's
sure.
Never gonna sell. And if you make a video said Siege is dying, everything's horrible, hacker every game, that will do way better than if you said, today was a bit of a bad day. I had 5 hackers out of 11 games. Like,
yeah, for sure. You are going to remember the worst parts. I mean, like, there's sort of cognitive bias towards that. I'm sure that probably comes from our evolution as a species, to recognize like threats and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, like I suppose that's my point. All of the things being said there in these videos lately, and I sat through Bikini's discussion of it too. I understand people's points, but I'm not personally witnessing them, and I feel like a bit disingenuous as well to like being engaged in the conversation with you guys and like pretend that I'm experiencing it to as great a degree as some people are reporting, because I'm not. That's my experience. Is like I'll get like a couple of bugs a week maybe, and I tell you what, the amount of times I think, oh, that I'll hit shadow play, instant replay, and I'll be like, do you know what I mean? And I'll look at that clip and I think, actually, you're an idiot. I did something wrong, or I overpeaked, or I didn't see him, and then I look back and I did see him. But it just happened really fast. So
I mean, that is so true though. Like how many times, like when we die, if we can blame something else, we want to do that. I think a lot of people are in that sense. Like if I can find some way to blame something else than myself on that death, I'll do that. And like we've seen Macy, he does that a lot. If he ever questions, why he didn't get a kill, he always goes back and he checks it frame by frame. And a lot of the times it's actually not bad hit reg. It was just you actually missed. And that's like CG is so precise that it may actually look like you're hitting while you're actually missing. It's pretty. Like the amount of times we think that there's a bug or bad hit reg, and when the amount of times it actually isn't is pretty huge.
There are some issues though. Like for example, there are like the whole repelling animation. Have you guys encountered that where somebody repels in and their hitboxes who knows where? Like that's a real issue.
Like fly through.
Yeah, and then like it'll like reset them. Like they'll be like almost all the way in, and then it'll reset up to the top. Like I have died to that. I've absolutely died to that.
Super annoying.
That's something that needs addressed.
But is it something you make a 20-minute video complaining about the guy game dying over? Like,
not only that, let me also take that what you just said a little bit further. Like I don't think it's fair to say hit registration in Rainbow Six Siege sucks. I think that it would have been much more effective if he would have taken that specific, because that is a real example, and that does suck, and that is something that needs fixed. But that blanket statement of hit registration in Rainbow Six Siege sucks, I don't think that's true. There is an issue with certain animations when it comes to rappelling, vaulting, and some of that stuff that needs addressed. But just the blanket statement, it's not the best way to present that argument, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the selective narrative that's so easy to build, though, because if I want to make a video that's negative for the reason of being negative, it's very easy for me to find all the clips that have gotten the views of like crazy things happening. But ever since we got the little icon, the indicators up in the top right, almost like when people come into chat and say, "Oh, dude, I was shooting this guy and it was a headshot. I have a clip. Do you want it, dude?" Okay, let's look at it. We watch it frame by frame. First off, it's 60 FPS. Sometimes it's even 30 FPS when you get the clip, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily line up with what's actually happening in game. We know that blood hits on the frame after the shot is registered, because blood will only show once you do damage. So there's a full frame in between that as well. Like if you see blood, you did damage no matter what. Blood can't show if you didn't do damage. So if people are shooting and you see the crosshair right in the face, they shoot a bullet and blood comes and the guy doesn't die. Well, then something else was hit. The game didn't accept that as a headshot. It might have been the shoulder, it might have been whatever.
Yeah.
But you did hit and it did do damage, right? It's just maybe you're shooting at an angle, maybe you hit the shoulder. Why is it that we always default to it is more likely that the game cheated us out of a headshot than we missed? Because you miss a hell of a lot more bullets than the game's ever gonna like cheat you out of. It's gonna happen that like people have to not misunderstand. I'm not saying there's no bugs. It's just not nearly as much as people think. And the same goes with hit reg.
In the interest of painting an accurate picture, I just want to be sure, because I don't think Flight said that the hit reg was totally trash. Like,
I think he mentioned specifically hit registration problems, though. Like I think
Okay.
I don't know that it was necessarily one of his like core pillars of the video, but I correct me if I'm wrong here, Bikini. I seem to remember him saying hit registration issues within the game. Like I remember that sentence being said. Like, but maybe I'm thinking of a different video.
Was. I honestly don't really remember.
Fair statement about every game that's online.
Well, one thing that was said is that Bikini, you are a bit of a kiss ass, and I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah. I mean, it was said, but it's not true. But it was kind of said. Yes, it was definitely said. I think by Shroud in the video as well.
Let me stop right there because I think that's really important. Let me set up for the audience what that Shroud clip entails because I think that's a really important piece of this because Matchflight used this in his video. There's a clip of Shroud talking to Justin, who is another fellow streamer. Both Shroud and Justin have charms. In fact, Bikini does as well. Alex does. But anyway, they're sitting there talking about the state of Siege and basically
Shroud doesn't have a charm anymore.
Does he not?
Since he moved to Mixer.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But anyway, they're sitting there. They're talking about Siege, and basically Shroud says that Siege is in a really bad place right now. Justin agrees with him. Justin mentions that he got on to play maybe last week. I forget the time frame he mentioned, and that 3 out of 5 of his games or something like that were against cheaters. And then Shroud mentions BikiniBodhi by name and says, "I see this guy on Twitter. He's always shitting on other games, but then thinks that Siege is so great." And like kind of paints it like that Bikini is talking about Overwatch like shit, but that he doesn't recognize the flaws in Siege. So that's the clip. Go ahead, Bikini. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I think it's important that the audience knows what's going on there.
Yeah, I think specifically Shroud must have seen the post that I made about CSGO and Valorant when I sort of compared them in terms of development difficulty. I think we, even without, having that big of an understanding in development, I think it's fairly easy to understand that a game that doesn't have this sort of like complex destruction system will be a lot easier to function properly. I mean, that's one of the things that makes Siege so glitchy is the fact that we have this very intricate particle system, and then the sound needs to react to that as well properly and open up holes for the sound to travel properly. So, and that's what sort of the comparison that I was making. I wasn't necessarily saying that CSGO, Valorant are bad games. I think, in fact, they're very well-crafted games, but they're not complex crafted games. That was sort of the thing that I was saying, and you must have seen that briefly, and probably saw that as me shitting on CSGO and Valorant. Obviously, I've been very vocal about Overwatch myself. I think they've made a lot of very poor design and balancing decisions, which is also supported by their own pro scene. And that's something that I've actually sort of been proven right on because you've seen the decline in both pro scene and casual player base of Overwatch over the years. And now they actually kind of reversed one change and they're adding back competitive open queue to the base game, which I'm super happy about. I think that's a great decision, and I'm definitely going to try that once it becomes a thing. Other than that... Yeah, I mean, I have no dislike against Shroud, but it definitely seemed like he was just sort of skimming the top of it. He wasn't reading into it. I don't blame him, but it was kind of funny because I did go back on his Mixer channel when he did that, and he hasn't played Siege himself in over 2 months. I couldn't go further back than 2 months. So it also feels like his opinion is purely based, obviously he could have been playing offline, but it seems like his opinion is purely based on what he sees on Twitter from the Siege community. And I think we can all agree that there's a lot of hyperbole that is being thrown around.
Would you mind if I just come in on that specific point? Because I know Alex wants to come in, but I agree totally on that. And I was saying that earlier, and I think that goes to show that, at the end of the day, we don't know. Shroud might be playing this game all the time offline, but it would seem as though he isn't. And it goes to show how important how it is to be considered with the message you put out as a content creator, and how you need to be balanced about the things that are shit and are a problem, and UB need to get their, asses in gear and sort those things out. But you can't over-exaggerate those things, because here you have one of the biggest, streamers in the world, a respected individual. I mean, I love watching his streams too, who's now saying on his stream, he doesn't appear, for all intents and purposes, to be even playing the game, but he's saying it's in a shit state. Do you know what I mean? So, like... Yeah. And that's the message that is spiraling around in the public sphere right now. And the other thing, I just wanted to quickly mention something. The reason I brought up this whole thing about you being a kiss ass was actually just, this, but for the viewers, give you a chance to defend yourself, right? Because I've witnessed you actually be quite hard on UB in the past. Oh, yeah. Do you know what I mean?
The automatic toxicity bans, I was very vocal, and I was getting a lot of flack from developers and other community members about that. Fast forward 6 months, they removed automatic toxicity bans because people were being wrongfully banned. You obviously have the monetization. Me and Cyronic have debated about that a few times. I don't like how they're handling the limited time event packs. We've had with the all chat changes that they were planning. So there's been a lot of times
away from the game at one point. I seem to remember.
Yeah, 2 years ago, when cheating was also there was a very big peak in Parabellum. Probably,
and it was worse than it is.
It was worse, but you look at the amount of people that are having so rose tinted glasses right now. Looking back at it, Parabellum was horrible. Mm-hmm. It was actually a cheater in every single game back then.
Yeah, teleporting cheater at that.
Yeah, teleporting cheaters, and now they're saying that Parabellum was the best season so far. It's just so ironic, because the same people who are saying that Siege is the worst it's ever been are saying that Parabellum was really good.
Content-wise, Parabellum was, in my opinion, one of the best seasons ever.
It was, but they are saying that it was one of the that they could enjoy themselves the most and play for 8 hours and encountered barely any cheaters, which is just blatantly false. Right. You can go back and there's so many articles of them talking about it. I quit Siege for a month. They had to do this big update when there was talking about DDoSing and teleporting cheaters, and there's a bunch of articles on the internet about the cheating in Parabellum. And it was way worse back then, way worse. And of course, we're not here to have a cockfight on which season is the worst. Obviously, it's always bad when there's cheaters, but the amount of rose-tinted glasses in this community that can't see how this game has improved over time is honestly very demoralizing and kind of sad.
I just wish we as a community would look at the cheating issue like it being an issue with the cheaters and not with the good people and not with the game. It's the people that choose to cheat that is really the problem there. And whatever they can do to slow it down, fix it. Goddamn, it sucks playing against cheaters. It really does. But I think the worst thing is it creates a paranoia that when you just see people, I do it every time. I go through the scoreboard, I see level 60 with an anime picture, I'm like, oh god, not again. This guy's gonna come flying out, hip firing everyone. I know, right? And it might just be a legit good player, but right now you don't know, and that's the worst thing. Because now everyone starts thinking, oh, this is probably a cheater. This is probably a cheater. If I jump on the Smurf and change name and I have one good round, someone's going to say something, right? That's at the state we're at because of the cheaters. And that super sucks. It really does. But it doesn't mean the game's bad.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. There's a reason. Sorry?
No, I just hope that people who are saying that Siege is unplayable right now and things along those lines, I hope that they realize that in the public eye that only damages the game's reputation. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so adamant about saying that it's really not that bad, is because first of all, it isn't that bad. It isn't unplayable. I can play for 8 hours a day and maybe I'll encounter something, but they're only damaging the game's reputation, and it's we need a constant flow of new players that want to take the shot at trying the game, and saying the things that some people are saying on their social medias does not help that, and it also doesn't help people's morals in playing the game. If that's something that took a very big toll on me before I actually talked about it, was like seeing how all these people were like, talking down the game while I was having fun. It is very demoralizing.
Yeah.
Like I almost like, I felt like, removing my Twitter app and like not going on my Twitter, because like I felt like that negativity that was going around on Twitter.
Mute. Use the mute function.
Yeah, but it's
Bikini.
like, yeah, but it's not just me. Like a lot of people felt like, I saw a few other people saying the same. Like, I'm sitting here enjoying the game, but all of this negativity is really like demoralizing.
You know what's
Like,
kind of crazy about this, in all honesty? And I'm throwing numbers out literally. I could be way off here, but everything we're talking about right here, I would be willing to bet 90% of the Rainbow Six Siege players have no idea what Save Siege is if we told them, hey, if 90% of the people who play Rainbow Six Siege today, if we asked them what is Save Siege, they would say they've never heard about it. Now keep in mind, I'm talking about total players on console and everything, okay? So part of me does kind of feel like maybe we're giving this too much attention because it's just something that exists within this little vacuum that we're in on Twitter and the competitive, I guess, space of it, and like the really like diehard Siege fans. But then the other part of me, like we mentioned with Shroud there is the potential for this to do real damage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a shame.
I think the one thing is like that I see, at least from the casual side, what they are having problems with currently, that are not like on this whole Save Siege movement, it is the mouse and keyboard on console. I think that's the one thing that I feel like a majority of the community are, at least in this sort of like casual community sphere, are having issues with, and that is the mouse and keyboard cheaters on console.
Yeah.
But other than that, they aren't really complaining about bugs.
DOS attacks are a little worse on console, I believe, than what we're seeing on PC. But no, they don't have the cheater issue for sure. That's one thing.
When you say like 90% probably don't know, I think you're right. But I think the 10% is the ones that are capable of damaging the game.
It's like the vocal minority, I think is the right word there.
And it's super easy to like put in perspective how quickly things can change. How few like positive things do you get to see about the game? Like, when was the last time you saw someone write, damn, fuck, I'm glad I'm making a living doing this, or
10 out of 10 GameSpot.
Yeah.
Was,
I mean, if you do that, the only comment you're ever gonna see is people, go, the paid, 100%, man. They paid for that, right? Like it's the same thing. I can criticize something in Siege today. If I say something positive tomorrow, the first comment will be, "Who paid you to say that?"
Yeah.
Like no one. First off, it's illegal. Like no one is paying anyone to say positive things. It's weird that you're strawmanning people out instantly the second that they say maybe it's not as bad as you're making it out to be.
That's a great point.
I don't understand it.
How did we get here?
Complain too much, or we're shields?
Yep, that's it.
And when did we get here? Because this hasn't always been the case. Like, there's a moment in my mind that I want to mention, but I'm interested from you guys. Like, this hasn't always been the case. I used to be able to get on Twitter and be like, I had so much fun playing Siege today, and like, I'm just so grateful that I started playing this game. I don't know, I'm throwing, I'm making that up. But if I did that today, like, I would at least get a couple responses of Ubisoft shill. And that's not always been the case. How did we get here?
I don't think that's a Siege thing. I think that's generally just a gamer community thing, because it's happening in that's the same problem. So when you're talking about Siege and you're talking about bugs, they are doing the same in every other game. Their community.
Yeah.
This thing that's happening with Siege right now is happening for every other game. Like Valorant is having massive issues now with people like just saying that they aren't doing anything right with the Pika's advantage on, like, they had an update that basically messed with all the hitboxes and stuff. And goddamn, the game's so new. Like, chill. When did we start like needing a perfect thing? Day one, and then that's just how it is. It's never been like that. Like, there's never been a game that came out that wasn't full of bugs in some way, shape, or form. Like, even CS, notoriously, beautiful, simple, great game. It, like, the list is endless. You could see people through smokes on the minimap. That was called Astralis wallhack. That stayed in for a long time and was played in competitive, and it was a massive issue, right? they've had plenty of their own cheater scandals. Like their weapon balancing when they changed to the one tap or the more accuracy related shooting, where full auto basically got a bit of a nerf. The community lost its mind. That was back when I played. There's been plenty of them afterwards, like Molly and Smoke not working proper together and stuff like that. And the community is just as vocal about it there as we are in Siege about stuff. But it's probably those 10% that are the only ones having the conversation. But they play with the other, right? And that affects their opinion. So when you go and play with your friends, it's, oh yeah, this thing is bad. Oh yeah, this thing is bad. And when you look at content creators and, well, us and big ones playing the games, it's really difficult to find a competitive FPS where you're playing for MMR or some sort of ELO system, a competitive FPS where people aren't complaining.
I mean, competitive game in general. I mean, I see it in League of Legends. I see it in Dota.
So any game.
I see it in
Any
Hearthstone.
game.
It's any game in general, really.
But I think it's a little worse in FPS because we do have the aimbot and wall hackers. Where there is definitely cheaters in Dota and League, like you can get the fuck up war cheats and stuff like that. But you don't feel as cheated as when someone just goes and then you're dead.
I think it also has to do with the time to kill.
Yeah, probably. And the waiting time, like that you're out of a full round and you might know you're losing for the whole phase. Yeah. Maybe that's it. It was the same when I played CS in normal public matchmaking. You have to go out of your way, go to Faceit or ESEA and play there until you get a little bit of a better environment. But even then, it's the same thing. So I think no wonder that a lot of newer or bigger streamers that come in don't want to play Siege and Ranked because the chat wants them to play Ranked generally, right? If it's a former competitive player or something, when are you playing Ranked? Why not playing Ranked? If they go and do it, they're gonna meet a cheater at one point during the stream, and that looks bad. And the viewer's gonna remember that one cheater. They're definitely gonna be stream sniped by the same people in their chat asking them to play Ranked. You can't blame them for going, you know what, and then talking a bit of smack afterwards, right? Like that makes sense. The problem is that if I'm watching that, maybe I should be careful with how much I put into that because that's not going to be my experience, right? If I'm playing the game mainly unranked or quick play or at a lower rank or something, and I watch Bikini playing in high plat diamond, whatever, and you have a bad experience, when I go to play, that doesn't reflect what I'm gonna see necessarily. So, when like all of these big things that are blowing up from content creators and all of that, maybe we should all just realize that it's just one person and like it doesn't reflect majority of a player base. We're literally looking at the outliers of people, or you're looking at like the top 1% in the entire world in terms of skill meeting cheaters. Yes, of course, because who else are they going to play against? They're not going to be down in silver. Like
not
if
anymore.
You have a spin bot, yeah, I mean, if you have a spin bot, it's pretty easy for them to get up there, right? Now it's going to be like the diamond players, but still, then I guess we can get into the trouble of like if a 6,000 elo should be playing with a 4,500 elo player, but then you're talking queue times, and there's no real golden bullet for that, right?
One thing that I got to thinking about, you know, when we had Jeremy on the podcast and we were talking about this house rework, and this is why what Flank said resonated with me about the 90-10 split, because I feel that was a bit of an eye-opener that they were willing to design a map just for quick play, really. I mean, you know, initially at least. I mean, whether or not it turns up somewhere else in the future, who knows? But they've literally called it a casual rework, right? And that's an eye-opener because I think to some extent we do live in a bubble, because I might call myself pretty casual Rainbow Six Siege player, but actually I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about it every day, even when I'm not playing. You know, I'm DMing you guys, talking to you guys about it. So if I'm on the bloody casual side, I mean, what is some guy that's just coming home from work and playing it 2 nights a week for 2 hours? I mean, and I would suggest that actually that 90-10 might be more like 95-5, maybe more. I mean, I would say that there's a hell of a lot of people that aren't on Twitter tweeting about this game day in, day out, that aren't on Reddit talking about this day in, day out, and that is just a very small. Even if you might sit there and say, you know, like the guys on Reddit are a bit casual. Actually, like they're pretty hardcore. You know, that they're willing to take their passion to an online forum and talk about it. The casual fisherman is the guy that goes once every year or something, not the guy that's talking about it day in, day out.
Yeah.
So
someone had a really good point about if you just look at the top 10 Siege content creators on all different platforms. So like the one with the most followers on Twitter, the ones with the most followers on YouTube, on Twitch, Instagram, probably. If you combine all of those numbers, it's not that big of a pot of Siege actually. Like it's actually a fairly small pot, like 100,000, 200,000, a million, 2 million. That's still a very small amount of people compared to who actually plays, right? And think about how quickly it'll spread if you go on. Like that's the problem, because those people that are watching this content, and I know that if you go on and make the negative video, it's gonna get some hype. But what's the likelihood of you actually upsetting and making some of those viewers a little bit more aware of things that they might not be, more negative? They make other people more negative, and eventually you're gonna have people that leave because of that. You just hurt yourself. That's it.
I do think this was a
getting
little
fixed
bit
faster.
I think this was a little bit self-inflicted, because whenever I was asking you guys how did we get here before, the moment that sticks out to me when all this really escalated was that interview with Leroy Athanasov, where he said, if the pro players are complaining, we're doing something right. And that quote from him was taken completely out of context. That I actually agree with what he's saying there. I completely get it. And it wasn't meant to say that we don't care about pro feedback. But ever since that moment, it has felt to me like that vocal minority we're referring to right here has added fuel to that fire of, you know, of just them complaining, I guess you could say, and being upset. And that's unfortunate, because again, that quote was taken completely out of context, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it was more meant to, like, you know, we want to keep them on their toes. We want them to, freshen up the meta so that you're not sitting here and playing the same game over and over again. And yes, you know, they buffed Ying by quite a lot in order to sort of try to help her shift around the meta. And I mean, she did maybe a little bit too much, but it was still interesting to see.
There's a fundamental misunderstanding of the balance of this game, though, and I see it time and time and time again. And in fairness to the people that have that misunderstanding, I had it too. If you talked to me 12 months ago, that's the sort of stuff I might have said. But it wasn't until I was fortunate enough to attend a balancing sprint and speak to these guys and understand that there are other factors that are considered as important as, you know, how competitive certain things are and balancing them to the highest level. Actually, like, it's a video game, and like they, you know, we had Laney on here talking about player frustration. These things are, you know, absolutely fundamental to the game, because, you know, we talked about how the casual player base, that's the bricks and mortar of Rainbow Six Siege, really.
I feel like one thing a lot of people fail to understand whenever a balancing patch note comes out is that at the end of the day, it's balancing. You know, it's not really there to care about your feelings. If something is too strong, then it's going to be nerfed. Like, yeah, you might have enjoyed using it, but one of the reasons why you've been enjoying it is because it's been very effective, and perhaps too effective. It's definitely something I feel like a lot of people miss when it comes to balancing patch notes.
That point there is where I think UB are right to now have said that they're going to explain in the patch notes why they've made those changes.
I love that.
Yeah, but I think the criticism there is that it has been a long time where those things haven't been explained. So that point I actually understand totally. Like, if something is a bit of a head scratcher, and I suppose the point I'm getting at is there is always a logic behind a change. They're not just messing with you. They're not just effing with you, trying to, like, screw with your head. Like, there is a logical reason, and people are inventing their own reasons, and that's on UB, because they're not saying, look, it's this. So the fact that they're making that change is amazing. And whether you agree or not, at least you know why. You go, okay, so, you know, JB came on the podcast. He said, you know, one of the reasons for the change to bug, Pro League was a big factor, actually. Like, in that change. So if you're a sort of casual person and you don't get it, or you just like a rank star and you don't get it, well, that was one of the factors. So in future patch notes, that will be explained, and you will go, because what I see a lot of is I've spoken to people that play a lot of ranked, quite high level, and they're like, I just don't get the buck change, and it's like, well, it might not be made with your level of play in consideration. Actually, they're looking at the whole picture here. It's like a holistic view. Some of these balance changes are for lower level players, casual players. Some are for high level. It's just the nature of it.
There's such an unfair look on it, and we all do it. Is if something changes that we don't want, then it's a bad change. Whether it's a good or a bad change, like that, that all of a sudden doesn't matter. The same when it comes to balance. A new thing comes out and we go, you know what, it's OP. How can you possibly? I don't care how strong it is. I don't care if it's new Blackbeard. How can you tell within a couple of hours that it's too strong? Like, what kind of magician are you that you can just read the meta perfectly? Because whenever like games actually happen, we normally end up being a little bit right or wrong on our assessments, right?
I mean, Amaru and Kali were supposed to be broken on launch, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like,
according to the people
Amaru
who
now
know this game at its very core.
I'm terrified of her now with the buff that she got.
Yeah,
I think that is
really
insanely strong. But I'm not gonna sit there and go, dude, it's OP. It needs to nerf. Let it play out. Let's see what happens. And
let them get her data on it.
We have a massive issue when some of the top players, and this can be anything from pro players, top rank players, or whatever, says A is OP, and then the other half says actually it's not OP. It needs a buff. So if they can't come to a conclusion, who do we follow? Right? Because it's fine to give the criticism, but you probably shouldn't give the solution, because you're going to be nowhere near. Just give your feedback on what you don't like, and I mean, the better phrase it is, the easier it is for people to actually, take in. Because if you write, you know what, fuck this shit gun, then someone's going to have to sit there and try and figure out what does that mean? Because there's probably something in it, right? It could be the Scorpion, but why? Does it have too many bullets? Does it shoot too fast? Is it too accurate? Like, what factor are we looking at?
Get specific.
Yeah. There's a beautiful video on, I think it's Game Developers Toolkit, where they're talking about how weapon balancing is impossible, because you're taking the thing that does the most damage, the thing with the most fire rate. If you keep removing all these things, then you're taking the one with the best sights. If you remove that, well, best iron sights, then it's the thing that takes the least amount of screen space. Then it's the thing with the lowest audio, so you can hear footsteps better while shooting. There needs to be good and bad guns. They just all need to have different uses. And as long as you do that, then it's okay to have like shit guns and have strong guns. Things just need to like play out, and then the community will kind of show through data what is actually strong and what is not. Because with Ying's buff, she lost one Candela. Did she get more of a nerf than that after?
No.
It was just losing one Candela. Why aren't we seeing her all the time in these comp rounds we're seeing now? If she was that strong with 4 and 2 smokes.
In what rounds?
The comp rounds being played now. She has 4 in live build still, right? Or 3, sorry. And
3,
smokes in live build.
She should have 3 in the live build right now with smokes.
Yeah, and smokes. So if she was that busted with 4, that it was OP and you couldn't do anything, how isn't she busted with 3?
I feel like a lot of people theory craft and think something's overpowered. But when it comes to actually like in action, it doesn't play out that way. Like most are saying like, oh, she can clear all of this by herself and then she can go in. But yes, but the chances
you go up
that
and you get shot.
Right, exactly. Like, oh, I have this mind of it, like, and we're doing this, and there's no way we can lose. And someone gets doinked early, and then it's all gone.
Yeah.
That happens way too often, where people stick to their theory crafting as a fact, but in action, the chance that you would actually pull this off consistently, this is not there.
Yeah. I want to throw a theory at you guys, and it's kind of with balancing, but it's something that I've been thinking about throughout this whole conversation, and I don't know. I just want to see what you guys think. I think that streaming in general, I think that streamers, period, are much more likely to complain about a game than certainly the average player, but also somebody who just mainly creates YouTube videos. I think streaming places an extra level of stress on you.
Yes, absolutely.
When you're streaming a game, especially when you're trying to play it in ranked, it's as stressful as it is. It's like timesing the stress by 2. Okay, then you add on to their cheaters who are trying to like target you as a streamer. You add on Q snipers, stream snipers, and the reason I'm mentioning this, like Pingu mentions in his Everything Wrong with Siege video that he has 12,000 hours played or something like that, which in one hand makes him the most qualified person on earth to judge Rainbow Six Siege and to point out its flaws. But on the other hand, Pingu's experience in this game doesn't even come close to what the average player feels like when playing this game. And I think that, I don't know, I just think that some of the most vocal people about Siege and its state right now are the people who stream this game a lot. And I think that is an added, it's something you have to take into account. I'm not saying they're wrong, and I'm not saying that streamers can effectively filter out like, okay, maybe I'm only feeling this because I'm streaming versus average player. But I do think that when you hear a streamer say that the game is shit, you kind of have to take into account like, okay, well, they're dealing with an experience that is very unlikely for the average player to ever encounter.
And that's precisely the point I was making earlier about like the more you're playing something as well as the streaming, the more you're playing it, of course you're going to run into more and more frustrations. And I think what I would add to that, say you're a streamer, right? And you've done this yourself, thanks. I pop into your streams every now and then in incognito. No, not really. But one of the things when you're streaming, right, you've got this emotion and you've got this like bloody cortisol coursing through your veins. You are fuming. Something's happened. What are you going to fill that air with? Oh, I'm having such a great day. Of course not, man. You are fuming. Something's happened and you are going to release it because number one, you are broadcasting, you're an entertainer playing a game, so you're going to have to say something, and the emotion going through you at that moment is anger and upset and, you know, something quite negative, so that is going to come out. Whereas sort of like, because I don't really stream, the content I make is very after the fact, right? So like I have that moment, but when I'm looking at clips, I don't necessarily have a flashback as to how frustrating it was when I'm making a video. So I think that goes to validate really what you're saying.
Let me throw one more point at you here, Pete, because I think one thing that I forgot to mention in that, like, because the comparison to a YouTuber, I think is very important here. I can play this game, like I consider myself more of a YouTuber than a streamer. Okay, I can play this game half as much and still make the same amount of videos, and it will not impact my income whatsoever. That's not healthy for me as a YouTuber for the long run. But if I go through a month where I'm just like, you know what, I'm not having as much fun as I normally do playing Siege, I can play that game for that month half as much as normal and still make the same amount of videos. Now, again, I'm somebody who takes pride in having my finger on the pulse of the community. I need to be playing the game and be immersed within what's going on and the actual in-game experiences. So again, that's not healthy for me to do for a long time. But a streamer who is known as a Rainbow Six Siege streamer does not have that luxury. And I think that has the potential to add to the frustration. A YouTuber can balance their lives, in my opinion, much easier than what a streamer can.
Yeah, for sure. And one last really quick point. It's natural to get totally frustrated in a competitive thing where you're trying to win. So I don't blame any streamer for getting upset and angry, man. Like, you're trying to win, and that's cool. You should be.
You also get validated, right? Like that's the thing. So when you get frustrated, because this happens a lot, and it's one of my biggest fears, and it's really, really difficult as a streamer to make sure that you don't start, going along or down that road. I get one tap through a wall, and I see everyone in chat go, sus, ? Right? Is that guy cheating? What's happening? How did he do that? I don't know. Maybe there's a drone. Maybe he is stream stopping. Maybe he is cheating. But I know that if I wasn't streaming, at least 2 of those things are instantly out of the box, right? Like, not even considering that. And I'm just going to assume that he probably had some info. But you very quickly get this, yes crowd that just sits there and go, yeah, it wasn't your fault, Or it's the other way around where, you're just bad. So it's always like one extreme or the other. it's very rare. I don't know if it's because it's groups or it's because it's more entertaining or what makes it happen, but it's very rare that people just go nice shot and then leave it there, right? So when you have these like 200 people just going, dude, that guy's cheating because he sprayed the glass open on a window and happened to hit you through a wall, then it's very easy to go, yeah, I think he is, man. How can he's level 100? How can he do that?
It's cathartic as well, to share that frustration and get it out there. So, for example, I've had situations where I was playing Warzone and like something happened that it wasn't no one cheated, but it was like proper like when something happens and it's like, dude, like everything had to line up to screw me over in that situation. And it's like, like instant replay with shadow play, and then I record it on my phone and WhatsApp it to a friend. Look at that. That was, or if I'm playing with that friend, I'll be like, dude, that weren't even my fault, that death. I'll look at this. It's ridiculous. And it's like it's cathartic just to get that off your chest and go, look, it weren't my fault. I'm not guilty for this. It's an ego thing. I'm actually quite good at the game. That one wasn't my fault, when really you should take a step back and go, oh.
But it's the same thing we do in rank, though. When we lose, we go, if Jeff just had 2 more kills, man, then we would have won. Right? Like, no one goes, dude, if I had 2 more kills, then we could probably have won. When you're at the top of the scoreboard. It's always, like, if you're dropping 15 kills, you're definitely looking at the guy with 1 kill on the scoreboard and going, dude, this is your fault. No one else, right? But who knows? Maybe your kills kind of stacked up because you were failing your clutches over and over again. Like that, you could probably have improved something yourself as well, right? It's just very easy to get into that. It's probably not me. It's probably something else, and then all of a sudden you end up making a YouTube video that gives a shit ton of videos or views, where all of it is just like everything is bad, and I don't think it's a good road for the community to start going down. I don't think it'll fix things or speed them up. It'll just make things worse.
Let's bring this back to that video for a second here, because one of the things in watching your response to that, Bikini, that I felt like maybe was the core of your defense for Rainbow Six Siege was when Muchflight would mention issues or problems or bugs or something like that. Your core defense was Rainbow Six Siege is the most complicated first-person shooter on the market. And
I think not just first-person shooter. I mean, I think Rainbow Six Siege is before its time just in general. Especially being a multiplayer game, like it's probably by far one of the most complex in terms of the coding games out there, period.
So there's a false equivalence between, CSGO doesn't have bugs, so why does Siege? And your point is, well, look at Thinker, look at Malusi, all these different things, destruction.
I think one of the things that I think frustrated me the most was I saw a pro player that said, hey, look at CSGO. They had a bug with the crosshair that they fixed in a day, yet we have had our sound issues for months. And I just like, that is not comparable. Like, I mean, one is like a small UI bug that like.
It's like putting an ACOG on a Boss G or something like that.
Right, exactly. That's changing a Boolean from on to off, basically. I mean, all guns are prepared to have pretty much all attachments. It's more like, they prepare it just in case. Just like they have voice lines for gadgets that aren't even out yet, that those voice actors recorded at a few years ago. Like they always have it prepared. They just like have to choose to turn it on or off. But when it comes to like the things that I see some pro players compare, it's ridiculous. Fixing a small UI bug that, it's a few lines of code that aren't really working properly, and fixing something where we're talking like small physics objects and all of that, we're talking like LODs and all that BS, and then how sound needs to travel through that properly, and when there's multiple holes and it can be all different and you can reinforce over it again, and like it gives me a headache, and I understand some of it. And especially like when we're talking like optimization, like, a lot of people are saying like, client-side debris is super bad. Like, just make it server-sided. I mean, sure, we can probably make it server-sided, but do you want to play Siege with 30 FPS? Like
Or with worse hit rate.
or worse, exactly. Like there's just
There's a limit on
like
data.
I'm just saying that whoever is the guy or girl or multiple guys or girls that are sitting there and working on optimizing Siege, especially optimizing Siege for consoles, is an actual saint. Like genuinely, that is, I would not want to have their job.
Let me throw the counter argument. Let me throw the counter argument out real quick, because the reason, like, I agree with you, and I think the complexity of Siege buys me some leniency towards the bugs or issues that exist in the game. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
if I was looking at Counter-Strike and it had the number of bugs that Siege does, it would be inexcusable. But because
Yeah,
Siege is
it
so
would,
complex, I can excuse it. But the other side of that is that if somebody doesn't excuse them, that's not really their fault. Like, it's just a matter of an opinion. Like
I mean, I get
like
it.
there's going to
It's
be people out there who don't want there's going to be people whose baseline is, I don't want to play a game that has bugs. I don't care how complex it is. I don't want to play a game that has bugs. And you can't really argue them. If they're to the point where they're saying, listen, I love Siege, but I cannot tolerate the Habana bug anymore, then you can't really argue that with them. Like, they're at their breaking point, and their breaking point is going to be different than yours. So therefore, you can't really say like that they're not justified just because the game's complex. It's different for you and it's different for them.
That's 100% agree, but you can justify that they shouldn't try and push it on others.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Right. It's like, I understand their frustration, and they also need to understand the frustration for the coder that has to fix their frustration.
Or for the other player that has to constantly hear this. Like, if you don't enjoy it, go play the perfect game you're talking about. Because, like,
I mean, if CSGO and Valorant are fixing issues that you have so much faster, then why are you still playing Siege?
Well,
Like,
so I really
there's
enjoy
obviously
both of
something
those.
I mean, there's obviously something you like about Siege. You like the complexity, you like the destruction, you like the gadgets and how they influence the destruction, and that's going to bring some issues. And yes, it's really frustrating when they happen, but it's something we kind of have to expect.
I really enjoy CS and Valorant. I really do. And I played so many hours of CS. But I can't get myself to sit down and stream CS, because CS has to, like, your full focus, there's only one way to play it in my book, and that's, full focus in a 5-stack versus 5-stack. Everything's a scrim all the time, no matter what. Siege I can actually have fun in while playing rank, competitive, whatever you want to call it. Like, at high elo, you can still enjoy every now and then. Sure, sometimes it's not that enjoyable, but most of the time I can have a bit of fun. I can talk a little bit to chat. There's, like, I have utilities. If I'm having a bad aim day, I can compensate with utility and stuff. Valorant tried to fix most of the problems that CS has, and they didn't do that. It didn't end up becoming what was promised. And I like Valorant, I really do. But the idea that all the smoke grenades are going to be completely round balls instead, so you have no one-way smokes, no nothing, that took like a day for people to figure out ways that you could set things up so they just mess with perspective instead, right? Like, there's always going to be something. Well, now the CS players that wanted to move, they're angry that it's too utility-based, even though most of the utility is just, instead of you having smokes and molotovs that you have in CS, you have your gadgets instead now in Valorant. Like, I don't know, man. I hate to say it, but I think we're way too demanding as players with everything.
I mean, I'm gonna be completely honest. I can understand that it's like, it might not be fun sort of playing this sort of like removal sim, but for me, like, as a viewer, I think it's very interesting. I like seeing this sort of like, defenders sort of like set up a puzzle, whereas the attackers are trying to solve that puzzle. I find it extremely fascinating. And it's one of the things that I love about Siege, is seeing this sort of like rock, paper, scissor setup.
We also have the conundrum, because it can't be too fast, because then everyone complaining that Ash is just crouching in, right? Then we get then we nerf the trap operators, and now it's too slow because people started playing deployable shields and Maestro cams. Whereas, like, what's the golden time where the fight should be happening for people not to be upset? Because if people are on site too quickly as attackers, it's not good enough. If they have to execute with the last 30 seconds, which is actually something that happens in a lot of other shooters, Very common that you spend the whole round getting your setup and then you execute. So even if you only have 20 seconds or 30 seconds to go into site, then that probably isn't necessarily that bad. In defense for Pro League, what they normally refer to isn't that you get to execute at 20 seconds, it's that you have to. That like you're panicking because you didn't get enough control and stuff. But why aren't we seeing like, I mean, sure, it's probably happening in scrims, but there's like, we've talked about it before with like Fuse maybe having an impact on that, or Ying comes out and then people go, oh, well, you can clear ADSs. It'll help the 20-second meta. Now with Ace, people already look, oh, Ace too strong. Yep, but maybe he can deal with some of the shields, right? Maybe that helps. Then people are panicking about Melusi. Fair enough. Give me that Melusi setup that is so crazy. Because you might get those 3 whoop whoop things, or 2 if it gets nerfed, but you're going to miss something else. Whoop whoop things.
It's dubstep pyramids.
Hence Simmer soundtrack device. Like it's fine that you get those and you place them wherever, but that has to like play into the whole strat somehow. You're gonna miss some other operator if you pick her, right? Yeah. And Pro League is still like it's pretty closed off in terms of what people are bringing and can bring meta wise. Like if you want to stop drones, you gotta basically bring Mossy and Mute, and Mossy lost his shotgun, so that's a big one, right? Castle is losing his impacts on the next one, so it's really difficult to set up this like horrific, impossible to break defense that people are speculating about.
I mean, it's theory crafting again.
But
We're there.
I don't think the majority of I don't witness this utility removal thing, and the 90-10 and all that. People aren't people. I see people talking about it, and I sure at champion rank and maybe that.
No, not even close.
But I'm not seeing it. Is all I'm saying, and that's all. That's my only term of reference, really. Here,
I think.
Sorry, go on, Bikini, mate.
No, I was just sort of building on that. I think that like I am really not happy with how different the very top ranked is from actual competitive play. I feel like there are so many people that make it to platinum and diamond by literally just going IQ LMG, not even using their gadget, and just fragging out. And they are not being punished for it. And I think it also stems from like people having issues with things that would punish them. Like, Lesion is seen as a toxic operator and all of that. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's such a delicate issue, and you don't really see it in any other game. Like, I don't think CSGO has the same issue. I don't think League has the same issue.
Oh, CS has the same.
You think so?
Yeah, because if you get to the highest level in CS, first off, you can get to global. I don't know how long it takes now, but it didn't take that long before.
Right.
You can get to global if you're a decent CS player. Just play pistol only, like nothing else. You just run around with a 5.7 and you can get the global.
Right.
You could do the same with a Tech 9, and then when you go into actually play competitive, you can't move because people all of a sudden they're using their utility in the right rotation. They're locking down sites. They're coming in at the same time.
But I don't think the issue is as big.
No, probably not. But that's because there's less.
In Siege, I think it's almost like I see it as it's almost a different game that the pro players are playing, and that obviously becomes another issue when we talk about balance because they said, oh, Goyo is like one of the most broken operators that I've ever been in Siege, and then we look at the same balancing patches they were saying it, and Goyo was the 3rd worst defender in the game in high plat and diamond, and champion.
Or Goyo could keep 3 shields, and then Ace could come in.
Yeah, but I mean, see, this is where I'm kind of getting at. Well, like, I feel like ranked is in a really poor place where the people that are top ranked, in my opinion, don't like not all of them might necessarily deserve to be called top ranked players, and they still have that sort of voice as a top ranked, but they only got there by just clicking heads well.
Well, so it depends on what you. That's where you gotta look at rank for what it is, right?
Right.
Sure, it's impressive to get to champ, but no one's gonna give you any credit if you make global in CS. You just started playing the game, my dude, right?
Yeah.
If you wanna like have comp credit, you go and like play some ESE closed or face it or whatever, right? Like making it to global, that's the first step in even taking the game serious.
Right.
So if we look at rank the same way and we say it's only there for you to play against people of similar skill, and by the time you get to like diamond champ, probably a good idea to like give a scrim a try, find a team, try that, and then you can go further. Like this idea of, oh, I'm champ number 5, I'm the 5th best. No, you're not. You're just not.
Yeah.
Like you might have good aim, you might make fantastic YouTube videos, you might be really good at the game, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to play the highest level.
You're actually not necessarily good at Rainbow Six Siege itself.
Well, I think
No, but you might be good enough aimer that you can get there by yourself, right? Whatever
Right.
it might be.
I think the issue at the heart of what you guys are discussing right now is that Pro League is playing an FPS MOBA and Ranked is an FPS. And that's really the issue right now. And here's to take that one step further. I think this is one of the core issues with Rainbow Six Siege and the whole Save Siege movement is that Rainbow Six Siege originally started out as an FPS with a few operators who had some gadgets that could do some things. And now it's developed over time into an FPS with a lot of operators who have a lot of different gadgets that can do a lot of different things. And so if you're a pro who started playing this game, in season 1, can we all agree that earlier in the game, I'm not saying there wasn't any utility at all, but the game was more frag-centric than it is now. You didn't have the utility removal simulator problem in season 1.
I will actually heavily disagree.
I will not disagree, but I will say that I dislike that old Siege more. Like,
Yes,
I didn't
yes.
like when it was frag-centric. I like the fact that utility plays a bigger part in the game now. I like that we are unique in the sense that it's almost like an FPS MOBA. And, like, I can be fine with gadgets that limit the 3Cs a little bit. Like, I'm fine with getting stunned by Oryx or Nomaded. Like, I don't lose my mind if I lose control over my character for a second. And that, yeah, I know that I'm, kind of in a minority there, but it is one of the things that I do like about Siege is that it's not just an FPS. It is more. And we know that the developers have taken heavy inspiration from games like Dota. I know Leroy is a big Dota head himself.
And we knew this in year 1.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Right? I'm not blaming the casual community or any other player for not knowing that was the direction the game was heading in. But first off, you could see that starting when you played Siege. Okay,
Right.
There's more operators coming. There's empty slots, right? And we have this whole like class system. We don't have tanks and healers, but we have different speeds, different armors. They have different roles. It's super easy to see, right? Someone makes holes in walls. Someone goes boom. Very different, and we're getting more of it. And we knew there was DLCs coming with other operators. So if you expect any kind of like foresight into what the game's going to look like 5 years down the road from year 1, you would have expected for there to be a ton of different operators that do a ton of different things. And they have to be different because we can't have 4 different like Ashes that just have different guns but all shoot boomy things far away, right? We have Ash and Sophia. That's enough for now. Maybe further down the line we can use a further down the line we can use another. But for now, yes, it's definitely enough. But like so play day 4 of year 1 season 1 was my first Pro League game. We played against Epsilon on Chalet. And I had to rewatch this not too long ago for some stuff, so it's very clear. Just simply removing barbed wire was almost a death trap. It needed 3 hits. It slowed you down immensely. Like it was like getting clashed today, walking through barbed wire. Right, you're like stumbling through, boom, boom, boom. Shotguns would insta kill you if they were even in the same like postal code. So you touch a barbed wire and you die. If that isn't like utility removal meta, I don't know what is. And we didn't even know the maps back then.
The difference, though,
So
that I would throw at you is any operator in the game can 3-hit barbed wire, whereas if there's an evil eye, there's only a few operators that can get rid of that.
Oh no. So that would be fair, but we're talking about like the Pro League meta back then and the Pro League meta now, right? So the Pro League meta back then, if you went up to hit that, you die. That's the same issue with the Meister Cam, because you can sledge and map a Meister Cam, but you can rarely get to it. So you ash charge the barbed wire. You often did that. You grenaded barbed wire. You will see this in like every single Pro League. You like it's only now that we're like safely meleeing barbed wire because it's 2 hits and it even if you don't remove it, you can probably make it through, right?
Has
And then you had
utility
ADSs.
removal kept up with the utility they've added, though?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think it was just as bad back then, and I think a lot of the utility, when you look at an actual like overhead of the map, how much of it is being removed and how much of it had to be removed, because they can't place all of it from where the attack is coming from. They just can't. And if you have to spread it out for like 3 entrances, it's not going to be that much worse than it ever was before. And you're giving something up for doing that. There's less barbed wire than there used to be. Damn, there's a Pro League game where they ran 2 recruits on bank top floor and filled the whole barbed wire, or a whole hallway with barbed wire.
Bandit, barbed wire, 3 of them.
Recruit bandits. It was C4 and 3 barbed wire.
But you could run Melusi, 3 like when the season goes live, 3 Banshees, Maestro 2. You could run
Goyo, 2 deployable shields.
You can easily come up with horrible things that will be difficult to deal with, but you're going to miss something.
That's theory crafting again.
But do they need a new secondary gadget for anti-utility? Like, not the grenade, but something less powerful?
Why not just give Zofia and Ash an extra breaching charge a piece?
No.
Why not?
Because the issue isn't the removal. The issue is that we have operators like Omai and Jaeger that stops you from doing that.
Yeah.
So you need to first test if there's something in the way. I mean, you can make a face of it if you want, but that's the truth.
Like, Sophia is already like very overplayed in both casual and ranked.
So an operator, if Ash had infinity breaching charges, that does not affect the utility removal simulator at all. Is that what you're telling me?
Of course it does. No, I'm saying the issue right now, you can give her 1 more, but if she has to check if there's an ADS, you're going to see way too much wasted anyway. That's the problem. If you were to,
with
like,
3 flashes?
Let's pretend like Jaeger. Yeah. Because it's the first doorway with whatever, a shield or whatever. And she has to be there. Just watch the game through and see how much utility actually ends up getting wasted. You can't use your flash. Like, your flashes shouldn't be used to burn utility. They should be used to flash people.
I feel like whenever it comes to these sort of like hunker down metas, you know, we have operators like Mira, Echo, Maestro, a deployable shield meta. And one of the things that I always like is the backbone of this meta is having that Jaeger and now Wamai stacked on to help cover all of these things.
Yeah.
I don't think these operators, Maestro, Echo, Mira, would be nearly as good if Jaeger didn't exist. And I'm not saying, you know, hashtag remove Jaeger, but I really feel like Jaeger is an operator that, I mean, I know they're already looking at him, but he is someone that is a big culprit in all of these metas. He's like the one who enables all of it. Well, and Wamai, of course, too, but Wamai is a bit different. But I feel like Jaeger is definitely needs to be looked at and how his gadget functions, because I feel like he enables all of it.
And things snowball really quick, because if you were to say that you gave Ash an extra Ash charge, you're just going to see Ash run below and do like 3 Ash charges in the floor and the 3 default spots that people can sit in. And now 3 people have 10 HP. Like, it can very quickly swap from something being way too weak to being way too strong. The problem I have is that with the utility meta is that you're forced as an attacker to waste your stuff to be able to do something. And it's a much bigger problem than people assume to start with, because if I come up to a door with Sledge and I see a shield like 15 feet in to the room or something, and there's someone behind it, I can't remove that because I don't know if there's a Wamai, Jaeger, whatever. There might be a mute on the door, so I can't even drone it. I have to call for someone to come and throw a flash so I can remove it, or someone to remove the mute jammer. So it's this that I need other people to come and help. And that's fine because we get the teamwork going and all of that. But if there isn't anything there, it's a lot of wasted time. Then we get it removed. Then there's an ADS on the next one. So you see, we have to throw the first flash to see if there's one. If that one gets ADS'd, you have to throw 2 more because you need to see if there's a second one. That's the problem. So you need 3 flashes if there is an ADS, and you need 1 just to check if there is one. Does that make sense?
Yeah. An Ash with 3 breaching charges and 3 flashes, though, gets rid of every ADS on the board.
Yeah.
But then you're starting to look into like the same issue with like Ying, where you have them being able to clear too much projectile denial.
Yeah. I mean,
And I mean, Ashe is already a really good operator. I feel like
but I guess for me at some point it's like we recognize there's an issue with utility meta. Okay, the people who complain about Ashe aren't complaining because her breaching charge is too strong, and I'm not saying that her breaching charge isn't great utility. I'm not saying anything like that at all. Okay, so like why not like. It's like we shouldn't be I don't care about really. I don't really care that much about pick rate that much. Like, why not? If we recognize there's a problem in the game, we recognize there's these two operators, Zofia and Ashe, that people enjoy playing. They're already part of the answer. Maybe look that way. Yeah.
Well, no, I have an idea.
You're finding a fix for ranked where the problem isn't pro. Like
Ashe and Zofia are both picked in Pro League.
Sure, they don't need more breach charges for Pro League. Or more impacts. They just don't. That will be hell.
And they're already picked quite a lot in ranked.
They are so good right now that they are played in so many rounds. Zofia mainly because she has the concussions, which are kind of busted because you can like blind check if people are there. That's one of the reasons she's so good.
And clear ADSs.
Yep. We're assuming that this is an issue, and it's not just something that people are saying is an issue. I don't actually know, but if we were to look at it, how many rounds actually do go to 20 seconds? Or, well, 30, 40, whatever. How many rounds are actually decided because of the utility, not because of won and lost gunfights? Because I'm not actually sure.
I feel like
if this is a perceived issue or not.
I feel like this is a good example. Like, instead of looking at characters that are really strong and how we could make them counter the 20-second meta, can't we look at sort of like reworking a character that isn't really played for their gadget that much? Especially in ranked, like I feel like IQ is a good example that could work really well in this sort of meta. And I mean, I know she sees a decent amount of Pro League play, but in ranked, most people just pick her for the G8 at the moment with angle grip, of course. And that's another discussion. But I feel like one thing that they could do with IQ is to actually give her some sort of impact with her gadget that is more like just finding things.
Like a frag grenade?
No.
Oh God.
No. I feel like, but what if we could allow her to have some sort of like Jackal-esque ability where she had maybe 2 charges with her scanner where she could temporarily disable an electronic gadget for a few seconds? Not counting batteries.
I'm with you,
let's say
through walls, I'm guessing.
Take away the angle grip on the G8, but that's another discussion.
Yeah.
Allow her to scan. She sees an object. She holds the interaction key, and it says it's an ADS or something, and it disables that ADS for 5 seconds, allowing your friend to have an opening to frag a deployable shield or Meister Cam, yada, yada, yada. I feel like that could be a fantastic solution to also make her feel impactful in lower ranks, because at the moment, they think her gadget
through walls, right? I just want to
useless.
make sure that we're on the same page. You're talking through walls. She'd be able to do that.
Yes, but there needs to be a limit to the distance that she can do that. Now it's like, I think she can detect them in like 50 meters. Maybe make it so that the detection rate is like still 50 meters, but she can only do the hack in like less than 8 meters or something like that.
Does her gadget detect a bandit holding a bandit charge?
No, not in his hands.
Okay. That could work.
I love the idea though.
But it needs to be like obviously she needs to channel it for like a few seconds before it disables it. So a bandit could counter it by, bandit
or
tricking
keep it active the whole time through. So if you wanted to stop an ADS, you have to actually like physically channel that thing.
Oh, I like that.
And so you have to stand there and like beep 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 on your little console thing, and then the ADS don't work for that set of time.
Yeah,
that would actually be really cool.
I love that. I mean, so it's one operator that deals with some of the issue. I think one thing we're completely forgetting is there has to be some responsibility on players for like finding ways to break that meta as well, because we can't go into this where every single time a meta develops, something has to change from a gameplay perspective. That's just not the route.
No.
At some point, players are fully responsible for finding out how to break this thing that's being set. If it can happen in other games, then it can happen in Siege. Like you can't just say that. Well, we have found the best way to play it. There's no other better way. There's no way to counter it. Bullshit. There's always going to be something.
It's whether they have the tools though, because if you look at the last few attacking operators, so Yana brought grenades utility. We had Kali obviously she's brought that utility, and then this one, Ace, he's brought utility. So the devs obviously know that they're giving the attacking team more tips, more tricks.
But they
even
also have to, because the only thing that they see on Twitch or on Twitter is we need more. Right?
But
like,
I suppose
so you kind of have to respect it and give it, even if it isn't necessarily true.
But has utility removal kept up with the sheer amount of utility being put in the game on a defensive team?
You can have enough utility removal on a team, yes, but most teams decide to run 2 Heartbreachers or they ban Thatcher.
The behavioral.
Yeah,
sorry,
I think that's probably the issue, Pete. Because I get what you're saying. I think the issue is like you can say on paper, okay, there's this many attackers that can get rid of this much utility, but if all the defenders that have that utility are in the meta and the attackers aren't, then how realistic is that? And then I think what Zeronic's saying, which I agree with to a certain degree as well, is maybe those attackers should be in the meta. You know what I mean? Like, don't complain that you can't get this utility removed if you're not willing to bring these attackers. So I don't know. It's kind of like I think that one thing that I'll add to that, though, that I think has changed and possibly created a problem, if there is one, is that, okay, giving Yana frag grenades, yes, that is another attacker that can remove utility, but it's not equal to deployable shields now being in meta, because how many different operators have those? Also, you introduce Goyo at the same time, who has 3 deployable shields at that time. And you know what I mean? Like, okay, yes, I can bring this operator, but maybe Yana is replacing Buck. So if Yana replaces Buck, are you actually getting any more utility removal? No. You know, you're getting the same amount. Both had frag grenades at one time. But if a Goyo replaces a Mute, that's 3 more devices that attackers have to get rid of that they didn't before.
Yes and no, right? Because the Mute Jammers could have been all the info. So
right.
So
yeah, I just brought 2 operators off the top of my head, but
this whole thing with so look at Cafe Top Floor. One thing we saw was I can't remember what team it was. It was one of the EU teams. I think it was Vitality. They had a really cool setup with a deployable shield and freezer, 1 in bathroom, and like everything was just focused on piano, right? 3 deployable shields looking there, everyone playing. Is it really that insane to maybe try and attack from the other way? Their entire utility,
right.
2 ADSs, 3 shields. How is this like utility removal meta if you decide to walk face first into it? There is other routes in the map, and sure, someone might go and say, well, it's not the most effective. Well, neither is spending your entire round not dealing with that shield and dying. Like, you can't go on Twitter and be angry that there was shields facing you. If you had a drone in there and you knew where these shields were and you had an option of doing like a cocktail take. Right?
Bikini, what are you scheming on down there?
No, I'm just listening.
You were smiling. I thought you were going to tell us that Much Flight just DM'd you back and that he's ready to join.
Well, he has, but but that no, my girlfriend was playing around with my cat came in there. They were messing with me. Bastards.
All right. Well, hey, do you guys want to talk about the one-shot headshot before we wrap things up here?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So one-shot headshot mechanic. It's a thing in Siege. Maybe I'll start it out like this. Okay. So maybe a week or 2 ago, I put out a tweet, and I'm going to summarize it. It was something along the lines of I'm on board with the one-shot headshot mechanic needs to go train.
Completely?
It's Twitter. Remember, Twitter is an awful platform for relaying your thoughts. Okay, so I'm trying to get my tweet as accurate as possible. I said something along the lines of the majority of headshots at my level are luck based and not skill, and I would love to see them test the game out in the. I would love to see a test server where the one shot headshot mechanic was different.
See. The way I look at it is like I fully agree when it comes to like through walls. I feel like through walls should not insta kill me. Absolutely, like that's completely fair. It feels amazing to hit them. It feels absolutely terrible to be hit by. When it comes to like just in general, I feel like it's very problematic because you look at it now today. you know, 4 of your teammates, they goof around and they die. You're in a 1v5 situation. The one-shot headshot is what allows you to win that. Because I can have the MP5 or whatever, I can have really great crosshair placement, and I can get headshots before they get good shots on me. If the one-shot headshot mechanic didn't exist, they would be able to get these like one AR shot in here and there, and by the time I get to the 4th guy, I'm not gonna have the health to be able to kill him in time because I need at least 2 headshots on him.
For me, that's the biggest thing. Because
Yeah,
it's
right.
it's that feeling of like you still have a fighting chance. Do you know what I mean?
Like, here's the
That's
thing.
the
I'd
big
love
thing.
to play a Siege that had a higher time to kill. Like, I love having a game that's more relaxed, where I don't have to be on my toes to always, you know, to always win. But I feel like it's way too etched into Siege's core at this point that I'm just not gonna bother. But I would totally be fine with doing it with penetration shots. But I don't think it's the play for Siege in it to have it in general. Maybe we can explore it with an operator, but I think that operator would probably end up being way more broken. Like if we talk about a Rook operator, but he gives you a helmet instead, I think he would end up being probably the most broken operator we've ever seen. I mean, look at Blackbeard. He can block 2 at the moment,
Yeah.
and he's not fun to play against.
I spent a very long time trying to figure out like if so there are different games that have one-shot headshot and some that don't, and like CS, for example, has one-shot headshot sometimes and not other times. But most of the kills you see are one-shot headshot, or they're like economy-based, so you're kind of expected to lose those ones. Now, imagine Siege. It doesn't matter how the damage model is on anything else, but imagine I'm repelled upside down. The only thing you can see is my head. Imagine I'm behind a deployable shield. I'm taking a pixel peek. I am prone looking through the whatever metal thing anywhere. Now you engage in a fight with me in any form, whatever you want. You got to hit me twice in the head. It doesn't matter how many times I have to hit you in the chest. You're not winning. If we're even remotely close to the same skill level, you will never win.
That's kind of the beauty of Siege. We have the one-shot headshot. We have the utility that allows someone like me to outplay someone like Shroud. We have, right?
That's an argument against to some extent as well, though.
No,
No.
I no. That is Rainbow Six Siege.
Mhm.
It's games are not just decided by someone who has really good mechanical skill, and that's the beauty of it. You know, you want to play a game that's more mechanical skill that exists. You know, something like, but that's not what Siege is. Like Siege isn't just about mechanical skill. It is about utility usage and teamwork and all that. And that's what I like about it.
There's also an unfair thing with when you mentioned the most headshots are locked, right? Because even if we were to say that, let's say a headshot did 90 damage, what's to change that the guy who got the lucky shot didn't hit me once before or after with another lucky shot, like anywhere in the body? Because it's the smallest target you could possibly hit. If the recoil is really kicking it up to the head and getting a lucky shot, how didn't he hit you at least once somewhere? On the arm, shoulder, whatever. Like, maybe it will reduce your deaths by, I don't know, 10%, 5%, something. It won't be that much. And on the other hand, if he is the one spawn peeking you, you can't, like, get a quick flick and actually compensate and win it, right? Imagine, like, someone spawn peek with Doc from T3 on Oregon with just a punch hole in the window, and the only thing you can see is his head.
I think I want Flank to persuade me, though. Since this is your thing, right?
I think that
we've all told you why we don't
Let's
like
give him
your
a
idea,
chance.
but you haven't actually told us
I think the first
why.
thing that I would say is I agree that you can't do this. Like if I'm in charge of Rainbow Six Siege, I would say no. Headshot one shot headshot stays. Maybe we do look at penetration. Absolutely, but it's way too ingrained. It's part of Siege right now. You cannot remove it. Okay, absolutely. Do I think though if you could go back to the beginning of Siege, could you make the possible argument that the game would be better off if the headshot mechanic worked a little differently? That you could possibly make that argument. Here's what I'll say: the repelling example that you make, Zeronic, is very compelling because it's a unique Rainbow Six Siege situation. It's a situation where that CS and Valorant don't have to worry about. There's no situation where, well, I guess a possible like crouch head glitch could be a thing, but I don't know.
There's actually everything that has a height difference.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. So
Seriously.
it would be frustrating for somebody to be upside down rappel. All you can see is their head. Having to land more than one bullet on that would definitely give them the advantage in that. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I mean,
Okay.
If they were determined enough, could you change anybody who's on rappel dies to a one-shot headshot? It doesn't make logical sense, but I mean,
See,
The blood runs to your head.
I think one of the things that we can look into is I think we might need to look at these like high fire rate, low recoil weapons.
exactly. That's the thing
really
right there.
where the issue is.
I've been waiting for something compelling. Get
That's
to
the
it,
issue
guys.
right there.
Yeah,
That like,
we're gonna be completely honest. Fire rate is overpowered.
oh my god.
Sure.
And as
It always
long
will
as
be
long as there's a
one-shot
one-shot headshot mechanic, the MPX is a perfect example. You get somebody with good mechanical skill, and the MPX and that gun can win any gunfight in the game. I mean, the Cali is a perfect example. Why would I pick Cali with a bolt action rifle and the fire rate of molasses when every operator in the game holds multiple weapons that are one-shot insta-kills? I don't care if Cali's weapon is a one-shot down to the body. Like, that doesn't matter to me. I'm holding a weapon that has a quicker ADS, a way faster fire rate, and if I shoot you in the head, you die instantly. I don't need to, like, that's kind of me exaggerating that scenario to a certain degree.
No, but you're right. The only thing is, we have to remember that we can't look at the weapons. We got to look at the operator with the weapon and the gadget.
Right.
Because an operator could, will very quickly go down the road of, well, we need to know if all fast fire rating weapons. But I do agree, like, fire rate is the strongest. But some operators are okay to have like a really strong gun, and other operators have a really strong gadget. It's probably not good when they have both.
Right. And that's
Right.
I mean, we could get into Malusi right there. I mean, Malusi has a high fire rate weapon, and in my opinion, a good guy. Anyway, let me get back to this. All right. So when you have weapons that are super high fire rate with very low recoil, in my opinion, the core issue that I'm having an issue with right now is that first shot misses are not penalized in Siege, in my opinion. Whereas in Valorant, and Valorant has totally opened my eyes up to this, Valorant, in my opinion, you miss your first shots, you are punished. Now, it goes both ways. To play into Zeronic's point, it plays like I have landed, like the recoil in Valorant is so significant after your first couple of shots that in some ways you're more likely to land a pure luck headshot because that recoil is going all over the place. All you're doing is trying to drag down, and then one of those bullets lands on the head. Ta-da! They're dead. You know what I mean? Whereas in Siege, it's not so much luck, I guess you could say, in those scenarios. But what's frustrating me in Siege is that you get these weapons with a really high fire rate, you point in the general direction of an enemy, you miss your first 5 bullets, and then you just swipe across them. Your fire rate's so high, a bullet lands on the head, and now they're dead, even though they were landing bullets on you the whole time. Like, they were landing body shots on you. Maybe they land 2, and then you swipe across their body, a bullet lands on their head, and they're dead.
Isn't that skill though? Isn't that counter to your other point?
Sometimes.
Because you say you need to get the first shot on target in Valorant or your mincemeat, but surely that's the same with Siege purely because of the one hit headshot.
If both players are looking at each other, yeah.
Well, so the I don't know if you've played CS for a very long time or Valorant and the stagger, there's kind of a problem there because it doesn't matter how accurate you are in the first shot. It matters that you just hit.
Oh, because of how it slows them down.
All you have to do is you just have to apply stagger, and then unless you're a potato compared to them, you're probably winning, right? So accuracy actually isn't that important. It's important if you're both peeking each other at the same time, sure. But I would say it is in Siege as well, because maybe he gets you on a lucky kill, like halfway through the mag, going blah everywhere, right? But if you didn't hit him in that amount of time, then it wouldn't have been any better for you if it was another player that could aim the peak. Like, that's the best case scenario. Or he's so bad that he never hits you at all. But then you're probably playing in a rank where you shouldn't be. Because then you should both be having full potato game or matches, right? Or fights.
Just to sort of throw something out there, I'm not even sure if I would myself be that big of a fan of this. But would it be interesting to sort of experiment with giving high damage weapons something to do? Like, I'm thinking something in the lines of, like, as the damage is applied, depending on how high the damage is, a quick decaying movement speed penalty would be applied.
Stagger would freak the community out, but I would love it.
Right. So let's say you get hit by the Scorpion, which deals like what, 20 damage to you. You wouldn't really feel it. But let's say a hard hitting weapon like say a DMR, like the 417 that hits for 69, obviously without like that would significantly stagger you.
Or the UMP. The UMP could be a good example of that. Like the UMP versus the Scorpion, how can you make a comparison? But the UMP does high damage per bullet, so maybe it staggers and slows you down a little bit.
Like,
also, you can hit people in range.
That's the 3 Cs. That's the 3 Cs.
But that would be so good because we have these 3 speeds, right? Where, you know, challenging as a DMR, you need to hit like 2 shots on them, but they're so freaking fast.
Is that an enjoyable mechanic, though, to be on the other end of? You know, I understand it's a balance.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not even sure if I like this. But
the reason Stagger exists, just so we have it in perspective, is to mitigate like quick shoulder peaks.
Right. And
that's the only reason Stagger was ever implemented.
That's like the big thing from playing Valorant is like, I feel less punished in Valorant. And granted, I'm a Valorant noob, okay, guys? I don't want anybody getting the wrong impression here. I'm awful at the game. But in Valorant, I do feel less punished for having a good position and holding that position into an oncoming player, okay? Right. And there's several things that go into that. Like the fact that, you know, your accuracy's messed up while you're moving, and like there's several things that go into that. But one of those things is that I still have the opportunity to get a very quick kill by landing headshots. But also that I guess, I don't know, the movement mechanics are set up in a way that that person holding the angle is at an advantage compared to the other person in most situations.
Yeah, right up until people learn to do a strafe jump, and then everything goes to shit because they strafe jump around and you don't apply stagger while you're midair. It'll only ever apply when you land. So you can start doing shoulder peaks on corners with full speed and no stagger again. So the only problem is you just push that issue up to the highest level instead. So all the high-level players are experiencing this, but everyone else is having a great time. I'm a fan of stagger to combat shoulder peeking. I think it would be horrible in Siege because if I'm peeking into a goo mine, a wire, whatever, there's so many things that just limit my movement, and I'm not ever gonna feel like I'm at a better position. When I lean in on a good drone and I know where the guy is, I know I'm going to hit that shot, and I get hit in my left leg with like 5 damage, and now I can barely move. Right?
Yeah. It would definitely be advantage defenders. You know, you would have to think that. Because defenders can take the position, hold it, and then an attacker has to push in. So you would have to admit that you would think this would benefit defenders.
I don't know. Maybe it would be interesting just to lower the baseline of all guns, because the headshot multiplier.
Lower the baseline damage.
Yeah, of like everything. I'm sure they've probably tried it, and we're probably speculating about something that would be horrible. But imagine everyone just took 20% on the top of the gun.
No, what if they did that with fire rate? That's what I'm going. What if they removed? What if they just across the board 20% reduction in fire rate every weapon?
Things start feeling weird when if you're tracing something and your fire rate lines up between it. It's very unenjoyable.
They'd have to redo all the audio as well.
Yes, exactly. Second of all, like just that on its own, like reworking all of the sounds is like no. They're probably
speculating about like impossible things.
Of course, but like it's easier to speculate in things that could actually be possible changes.
That was a brave tweet, by the way, Flanked, because you did catch a little bit of heat for that.
I'm not afraid of that. I
had someone come to me and say, you need to talk to your mate Flanked about that.
People get so wrapped up. My big thing, and I still hold true to this, I would love to try this in the test server. I have such a strong desire to know what Siege would look like, because we can speculate here, and I think we've all brought up some really interesting points, but I don't think any of us have any idea what it would actually look like.
Opens up.
Go play Call of Duty and you'll know exactly what it's like.
Nah, that's not true. That's not true.
Yes.
No, because Call of Duty. Okay, do you think that Call of Duty headshots work the same in Call of Duty versus Valorant?
No, not even remotely close. If we're talking like all competitive COD on PC, non-console stuff, real Call of Duty, yes, No one ever aimed for the head. It's not worth it.
And I'm not saying that I don't think that if they tried it in a test server, that it should be no one-shot headshots, period. Like, I think it makes sense. Obviously, DMRs have a one-shot headshot and stuff like that. Sure. And I think that the headshot multiplier would have to be significant. Like, there's some CODs where I think the headshot multiplier is only 1.2, and that's not enough. You know what I mean?
I'm just sitting here thinking, like, what happens to Blackbird if we introduce this?
Exactly, that could be a good thing,
like,
right?
if Blackbird can already tank 2 shots, and then we like looking at, 2 shots more to get killed, and he could have a DMR so that he could just bypass this entire thing. I mean, he'd be a monster again.
We give an aim punch. Aim punch.
Yeah.
Imagine that every time you shoot.
Yeah.
Oh god. It's such a complex thing, but I feel like there's probably some ways that they could figure it out, but it's definitely not an easy nut to crack.
Actually, add it to custom games that we can change the multiplier of every limb, so we can go in and test this.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That would be cool.
Probably not easy. And there's probably a cheater somewhere that's going to set his headshot multiplier to like 600.
I mean, that has been a thing already.
0.5.
A few months ago, that was a cheat that people were doing, where people were
changing their multipliers. Oh god.
Yeah, they were setting their health to like 20,000.
It
required
that was the Twitch run stuff.
Yeah, it required like 200 headshots to kill them or something like that. Glad that's not in the game anymore. Easy.
That's one of the fixes that we forgot about.
Yeah, I really wish that someone just made a video going through literally any
That's actually on my whiteboard right now, Bikini. Not exactly that.
Please do. I've thought about it myself.
I've thought about, like, the idea is to go back, and not even, I was just going to go back to Operation Health and list every substantial improvement to the game since Operation Health.
Go further. Do it all. Really show people what they've completely forgotten about. Please.
Yeah, I just feel like if you go too far back, though, you're gonna alienate a portion of the player base. I'm like, what? I never experienced that, so it doesn't people who never experienced the old lighting when you looked out a window. Like, you can show them pictures all day, but they don't really understand.
Yeah,
they don't understand.
Show them how truly horrible Siege used to be. And like a lot of people saying Velvet Shell was good. Velvet Shell was the season before Operation Health. What I really love, Mira and Jackal, the game was that at that point.
It was super broken. I played during I had one of my friends get on, and this was on PS4 at the time during Velvet Shell, because there was a big free weekend, and I had one of my friends get on, and there was a bug that with that launch. Well, first of all, you could melee mirrors from the opposite side of the mirror. That was a thing, and there was also a bug where your drone would like go under the map, and you would be there the entire rest, not of the round, of the match. You would be stuck in like no man's land for the rest of the match, just sitting there.
Fell through the map.
Yeah, and
wasn't that the one where you could castle glitch, where if you kept putting it up and pulling it down?
No, that was later.
The server will go. Okay.
That was. I want to say that was Operation Health.
Thing people forgotten about. Like, there's just so many absolutely that literally makes the game unplayable. Like, we should be happy. We should be happy that like the worst things we face today is like barely hearing someone.
Alibis, Prisma also, not being the uniform color.
On the cheating thing, it is really, really important to mention that there are a couple of vulnerabilities that have been found in Windows, DirectX 11, and stuff like that has nothing to do with any game. That just makes cheating right now a lot easier than it was before. Until they get fixed.
I think also on that, I feel like a lot of people are saying that cheating is the worst it's ever been. But we also have to remember that now we know, we get confirmation that we played against a cheater. Even if we was unsure or something, closet cheaters, we see the MMR rollback. Back in Parabellum, when it was worse, I think we all can agree, we didn't have MMR rollback. We weren't sure if we played against cheaters.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, a lot of them were blatant back then as
teleporters. Because they were boosting.
It's easy to forget how far the game's come.
We can also blame some of the people that want their rank so damn much that they are willing to pay for cheaters to boost them, right?
Yeah, I mean, fuck those people.
It's a bad circle of a lot of things making that happen. And, I mean, there's quite a lot of things coming for it, right? Like, lobby freezers almost gone with the new thing. Offline bans, so enjoy, like, for all of the ones buying boosts, I guess enjoy losing that elo whenever that hits. That's going to be hilarious, right? Like, extra level cap on it, XP level cap for cheaters, it's all gonna matter. Like boosting is gonna at least be more expensive or more difficult. So, it sucks right now. It'll probably get better.
It will get better. We don't
All
have
right,
to
guys.
say probably.
Let's wrap it up on there. You guys good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's worth just saying, obviously, like, we talked a lot at the beginning about Flight's video, and he was, I thought he was really respectful in that video towards Bikini, and you know, how he approached you in that. And obviously, if anyone is going to go over and watch his video, to make sure that they show him the same respect, you know, whether you agree or disagree. And also, I want to say as well, like, whilst I don't personally experience the game as he seems to experience it himself, that doesn't invalidate his experience. He may be playing like totally different level, whatever, to me, but like, I think the main thing is I would just like to remind people you can disagree in a civil way. You know, not everything has to be antagonistic all the time. And we extend the invitation out to him. If at some point in the future he wants to debate and come on and discuss and share some of his ideas, we can do that.
Just be in time.
Yes.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Bikini, thanks a bunch for joining us again. As usual, we'll have your socials linked down below. Anybody who wants to follow them on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, they'll be down there. Yeah, thanks again for coming on. We will see you guys on the next episode.
See you later.
Bye.